I'll never forget the moment Karen screamed, "That's my car," as two cops wrestled her into handcuffs in front of half the neighborhood. Her face was beet red, twisted in rage, her designer sandals scraping against the pavement as she kicked at the air like a toddler denied a toy. All because she claimed I stole her dead brother's car, a car I had bought, owned, and babied for years. She didn't just call the cops. No. Karen claimed I was in the middle of committing grand theft auto. She pointed at my Corvette and swore it had been in her family. Said she had the real paperwork, and I was a con artist who had forged everything. She even tried to rip the keys out of my pocket. Twice. But what she didn't know was that I had every receipt, every document, and a security camera that caught her red-handed. So yeah, the handcuffs were satisfying. But it didn't start there. It all began on a warm Sunday morning in Belridge Hills, the kind where you think nothing can go wrong, until a woman named Karen decides your life is her next HOA mission. But before we dive headfirst into the madness, take a second to support this channel. Just hit that like button, it helps more than you think. And if you're into real stories about wild HOA presidents like Karen, make sure you subscribe. We post brand new videos every single day. Also, drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing just how far these HOA nightmares reach across the country. 3 months ago, I moved into a house I had worked my whole life to afford. Belridge Hills was supposed to be peaceful, upscale, and quiet. The kind of neighborhood where everyone waves good morning and minds their own business. And for the most part it was, except for one person. Her name was Karen Duvall, and she ran the Belridge Hills Homeowners Association like it was a kingdom and she was queen. Her favorite hobby? Telling other people what they couldn't do. It started innocently enough. I had just finished detailing my pride and joy, a cherry red 2021 Corvette Stingray. I'd spent 3 hours polishing it until it gleamed like glass. That car wasn't just transportation. It was a dream come true, something I promised myself I'd own since I was a kid flipping through car magazines at the barbershop. That's when I saw her, Karen, marching across the street like she had a badge, arms crossed, lips pursed, and that signature scowl I would come to know very well. "Excuse me," she barked, stopping right between me and the Corvette. "I need the keys to that vehicle immediately." I blinked. Thought maybe I misheard. "Come again?" "That's my brother's car," she said, voice dripping with false authority. "I don't know how you got it, but I'm calling the police if you don't hand over the keys. Right now." She held out her hand like I was just going to drop them in her palm. "Ma'am," I said, trying not to laugh, "this is my car. I bought it brand new. No one's brother has anything to do with it." Her eyes narrowed. "Don't lie." I recognized the model, the color, even the license plate frame. "My brother passed away last month. His Corvette went missing. That's his." The audacity of it left me speechless. But not for long. I calmly told her I had all the paperwork and could prove ownership. But Karen wasn't interested in facts. She was interested in control. See, ever since I moved into the neighborhood, she'd been giving me grief. First it was the color, a bit too flashy for Belridge standards. Then came the HOA warning stuck to my windshield in neon paper. Violation of community harmony was one. Visually aggressive presence was another. She'd say it with a smile, but her eyes were pure ice. "Most people here prefer more neutral vehicles," she said once. "But I suppose everyone expresses themselves differently." I tried to stay polite, even when she called an emergency HOA meeting just to propose new rules. Ones that would just so happen to ban cars like mine. When the board didn't vote it through, she started getting desperate. One morning, I saw her outside with a measuring tape, crouched down by my driveway. "What are you doing?" I asked from my porch. "Just checking the distance between your car and the curb," she chirped. "HOA guidelines, you know." "Pretty sure I'm well within the limit," I said. "We'll see," she replied, tapping the tape measure like it was a weapon. The next day, I got a notice taped to my front door saying my car was leaking fluids and damaging property. I checked, the concrete was spotless. So I took photos, printed them out, and brought them to the next HOA meeting. Karen didn't even look at them. Just waved her hand and moved on to the next item. That's when I installed a security camera facing the driveway. Something told me things weren't over. And I was right. Because on that now infamous Sunday, Karen escalated in front of everyone. She came stomping across the street just as I was buffing out the hood of my Corvette. Several neighbors were out walking dogs or grabbing newspapers. Karen didn't care. "That's my brother's car," she said loudly for all to hear. "I've had enough of this charade. I want the keys. Now." She actually looked like she might cry. Her voice shook, her eyes were glassy. But there was something off. Too performative. Like she was playing a part she didn't quite believe herself. I told her again, calmly, that this was my car. I had the receipts, the title, the registration, all of it. That's when she lunged. She reached for my keys like she was entitled to them, like they belonged to her. I stepped back just in time. "Give me those," she shouted, her voice shrill and breaking. "You're a thief. A liar. I'm calling the police." "Good," I said, pulling out my phone. "Let's have them settle this." She smirked. "I already did." Sirens began to echo in the distance. And that's when I realized she had planned this. Every second of it. The sound of sirens got louder, and Karen just stood there with her arms folded like she had already won. She even fixed her hair like she was preparing for a press conference. I swear if she had a podium she would have made a speech. 2 patrol cars rolled into Belridge Hills like it was a crime scene on TV. People started coming out of their houses. Some had coffee mugs in hand, others had their phones out, pretending to scroll but clearly recording. Karen waved at the officers like they were her personal security detail. "That's him," she shouted before they even parked. "That's the man who stole my brother's Corvette." She added real tears this time. I mean full performance. Voice cracking, hands trembling. You'd think I had just driven the car out of a funeral procession. The lead officer, a woman with a tight bun and a face that said, "I'm too old for this," stepped out and calmly approached us. Her partner flanked the other side. Karen tried to intercept, pointing at me with a shaky finger. "He stole it. I have the spare key at home and pictures to prove it. My brother just died and this man took the car." The officer didn't blink. "Ma'am, I'll need you to take a step back." "Sir, do you have proof of ownership?" I nodded. "Absolutely." I pulled out my phone and opened my digital glove box. "Yeah, I'm that guy." I had everything. Title, registration, insurance, photos of the original purchase at the dealership, dated 3 years ago. My name all over it. Karen squinted like she'd seen a ghost. Her fake tears stopped mid-drip. "These are obviously fake," she hissed. "He probably photoshopped his name onto my brother's documents. You have to check the VIN number. That'll prove it." The officer raised an eyebrow. "We'll do that. But first, I'd like to see any documents you have that prove your brother owned this car." Karen paused. Just for a second. But it was enough. "I don't have them with me," she said quickly. "But if you come to my house I can show you photos. Robert standing next to this car. Same model, same color, same license plate frame." The officer looked at her, then at me. "Let's check the VIN." She and her partner walked to the car and ran the number through their system. I stood quietly. Karen paced behind them like a caged animal, muttering under her breath. A minute later the officer came back. "Ma'am, the vehicle is registered to this gentleman. It has been for 3 years. There's no record of a transfer, theft report, or any connection to anyone named Robert Duvall." Karen's mouth fell open, then snapped shut. No, that's not right. He hacked it. He must have hacked the system. You're not checking the right Robert. It's Robert D. Duvall. D is in." "Ma'am," the officer interrupted, "do you have any documents, any at all, proving your claim?" Karen's face turned red like someone had lit a flame behind her eyes. "This is unbelievable. You're just going to take his word for it? This is my car. It's my property." The officer remained calm. "Ma'am, without proof we can't act on your claim. In fact, based on what we're seeing here." But Karen wasn't done. She lunged forward, again, this time not even hesitating. She reached for my front pocket where I'd put my keys. Her nails scraped my jeans as she screamed, "Give them to me." "Ma'am, step back," the other officer barked, moving to restrain her. "You're all incompetent." Karen shrieked, trying to twist out of his grip. "That's my Corvette. He's a criminal. A liar. I'm the president of this HOA, and I demand justice." Justice. At that point, all I could think was, Karen had finally lost whatever was left of her grip on reality. But the officers weren't about to let her continue. They pulled her back, and that's when she caught the edge of my pocket again and actually tore it. The fabric ripped, keys almost falling out. That was the last straw. "Karen Duvall," the lead officer said in the calmest voice I'd heard all morning, "you're under arrest for filing a false police report, attempted theft, and assault." The cuffs clicked around her wrists. And I kid you not, she looked around like it was all some elaborate prank show. Her eyes darted to each neighbor. Her jaw hung open like she expected someone, anyone, to jump in and stop it. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president." "You're under arrest," the officer repeated. "You have the right to remain silent." Karen didn't remain silent. She kicked. She screamed. This isn't over. I'll have your badge. You're ruining my life over a liar with a sports car. The officers didn't flinch. They walked her to the cruiser while neighbors filmed, mouths hanging open. Someone, I'm pretty sure it was old Mr. Halverson from 2 doors down, actually applauded. They put her in the back of the patrol car, and she started slamming her head against the window like a tantrum-prone teenager. I turned to the officer. I'd like to press charges. She nodded. You'll need to fill out a formal statement. We also need to collect your camera footage. I had it ready. The whole thing, her walking across the street, yelling, trying to grab the keys. All of it. And my neighbors? Every one of them had witnessed it too. By the time the police left, Karen's screaming had faded into the distance, but the echo of her meltdown lingered. Later that afternoon, I learned more than I expected. Turns out, Karen didn't even have a brother. No Robert Duvall. Nothing in public records. Total fabrication. She made it up, probably to find some excuse to take down the one thing she couldn't control, my car. An emergency HOA meeting was called that evening. And spoiler alert, it wasn't about the Corvette. It was about removing Karen Duvall from the HOA board. Unanimous vote. Gone. That night, Belridge Hills was buzzing like a kicked beehive. You'd think someone had dropped a celebrity into the neighborhood. People were texting, gossiping on porches, even knocking on my door asking, did that really happen? I kept getting messages from neighbors I barely knew. Did she really try to take your car? Is she actually going to jail? My husband said she cried when they read her rights. Is that true? Yeah, it was true. Karen Duvall, president of the Belridge Hills HOA, self-declared guardian of the community, was arrested in broad daylight for assaulting me and falsely accusing me of grand theft auto. And it didn't stop there. The security footage I gave to the police made its way into the hands of the HOA board. Apparently, one of the members had requested it officially to review Karen's conduct. It was played during the emergency meeting later that night. Not only did it show Karen lunging at me twice, but it also showed the smug look on her face right before the cops arrived. The face of someone who thought the law was on her side just because she barked the loudest. The board voted her out. No debate. No hesitation. And then came the fallout. First, there was the real estate agency she worked for, Maple Creek Realty. They advertised themselves as ethical, transparent, and community first. Karen had bragged more than once about being one of their top agents. But apparently the agency didn't find false arrest, or assaulting neighbors, to be in line with their brand. They put her on immediate unpaid leave while they reviewed the situation. Translation, she was done. Next came the press. Oh yeah. The story didn't stay in our little cul-de-sac for long. One of the neighbors had sent a video clip, the one where Karen screamed, "That's my car," as they cuffed her, to a local news tip line. By morning it was viral. The headline? HOA president arrested after claiming Corvette theft, but it was never hers. The comment sections exploded. People were tagging friends saying, "This is peak HOA behavior," or "Karen strikes again." Memes popped up within hours. Someone photoshopped her face onto a Grand Theft Auto game cover. Another made a fake ad for Karen's used cars, "Steal one today." It was a circus. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy some of it. After everything she put me through, the notices, the threats, the lies, it felt good to see her finally get a taste of consequences. But the truth was, part of me still couldn't believe it had gone this far. I kept thinking, what kind of person builds a whole lie like that? Fakes a dead brother? Calls the cops on a neighbor? What kind of void do you have to be trying to fill? That question got answered a few days later. One of the HOA board members, a retired teacher named Ed, stopped by my place. He was the kind of guy who wore polos even when it snowed, always smelled faintly of sawdust, and had a reputation for being level-headed. "You got a minute?" he asked, holding a manila envelope. "Sure." He handed it to me. Inside were copies of the HOA communications going back months. Emails. Notes from meetings. Photos Karen had submitted of my car. She had been building a file on me, trying to find anything that would justify some kind of violation. "She tried to convince us your car was hurting property values," Ed said. Even brought in a graph she printed from a website no one recognized. Said red sports cars signaled criminal energy. I actually laughed at that. "You're kidding." I wish I was. Then he got serious. But the thing that really concerned us was this. He pulled out a printout of an obituary. A real one, for a man named Robert Duvall who had passed away 2 years ago in Arizona. Not last month. Not from this area. And definitely not Karen's brother. She found some obituary online and twisted it into her story. Claimed the Corvette was his. We ran a background check. Karen doesn't have any living siblings. Never did. I just stood there stunned. She didn't even know the man? She made it all up, Ed said quietly. All of it. That's when I realized something important. This wasn't just about a car. Karen wasn't trying to get back her dead brother's belongings. She was trying to erase me. My presence. My freedom. My car. Everything I represented. She didn't see a neighbor. She saw a threat to her illusion of control. And that illusion had cracked. Over the next week, the legal side started picking up speed. I gave a full statement to the police. They already had the footage, and several neighbors agreed to testify as witnesses. The officers told me that based on the documentation, the physical altercation, and the false police report, the case was very solid. Karen's bail had been set at $25,000. And word was her lawyer was already trying to negotiate some kind of plea deal. But that was going to be tricky, especially after the investigators found out about the fake obituary. The moment the judge saw that in the preliminary hearing, things shifted. He wasn't amused. She weaponized grief, he said, shaking his head. And she did it to justify attacking a neighbor who had done nothing wrong. That's not just civil misconduct. That's dangerous behavior. I didn't attend the full hearing, didn't want to turn it into a spectacle. But I did hear that Karen broke down sobbing in court when the judge denied her request to have the charges dismissed. Her attorney argued that she had experienced emotional stress and made an honest mistake. But nobody was buying it. Because honest mistakes don't involve lunging at someone twice or fabricating family members. Still, Karen tried to save face. Through her attorney, she released a public statement saying she was deeply sorry for any misunderstanding and had only acted out of concern for her late brother's legacy. Nice words. Except there was no brother. And the only legacy was her own unraveling. The neighborhood felt different after that. Lighter. People waved more. Stopped to chat. Someone even brought me cookies as a thank you for putting up with her for so long. It was like the whole place let out a breath it didn't realize it had been holding. But beneath the surface, we all knew something had shifted. We'd seen what unchecked power looked like. And we'd seen what happens when the wrong person thinks they're untouchable. Karen wasn't the only HOA president out there like that. But she was the one who messed with the wrong Corvette. 3 months later, I stood in the back row of the courtroom as Karen faced the judge. Her high-priced attorney gave it one last try, claimed she had been suffering from temporary emotional instability, and was just trying to protect family property. The judge wasn't buying it. Ms. Duval, he said, you lied about a dead relative, you filed a false police report, and you physically attacked your neighbor over a car that was never yours. This wasn't emotional, it was malicious. The courtroom was dead silent. You are hereby sentenced to 6 months in county jail, followed by 2 years of probation. You will pay a $5,000 fine plus court costs. And there will be a permanent restraining order. You are to stay 100 feet away from the victim and his property. Karen's jaw dropped. The woman who once controlled an entire neighborhood couldn't even control the tremble in her hands. Her attorney whispered something, but she was frozen, as if her brain hadn't caught up with her downfall. As the bailiff led her away, she glanced around the room, searching for someone to side with her. But there was no one. Just neighbors she used to scold, watching her disappear behind a wooden door. Months later I got a letter. Karen had tried to sue me for emotional damages. The judge threw it out in 5 minutes. Later that week her house was listed for sale. Her real estate license? Suspended indefinitely. And Belridge Hills? Peaceful again. No more violation notices. No more neon warnings. No more tape measures. Just a quiet hum of lawnmowers, kids playing, and a certain cherry red Corvette purring softly down the street, free, legal, and very much mine.